Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's get it. I know you remember that song though. That Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding? Said you never ever leave from beside me. Cause I want ya, and I need ya, and I'm down for you always. Bum, 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 and I'm down for you always.
Man, Kiki, man.
That went crazy.
Kiki had a
Yo, what year was that?
I don't even remember.
Hold on, I might have to look it up. What year was that? Because why do I feel like I don't think it was when TikTok was around.
I don't know. A part of me feels like it was.
I feel like that was 2018.
I feel like the simple fact that I heard it so much just makes me feel like
it was TikTok.
TikTok was around.
No, them sounds be living rent free.
No, for real. I'm saying it really, bro. That song had me feeling like I knew someone named Kiki. That was the crazy.
No, that was 2018. I knew it.
18?
Yeah, it was 2018. So I was right. Okay. That was like TikTok really like started popping like 2019, 2020 really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was still crazy. Everybody was doing that. That trend went nuts.
Man.
No, but you ready?
Yeah, let's get it.
All right, yo, what's up? It's your boy D Starks.
Starks the artist.
You are now tuned in to the Just Different Podcast where we talk about everything faith, life, and culture. Let's get it, man.
Let's go.
Another week, another day, another dollar, or whatever they say.
You know the kids.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Talking about.
What episode we on? What is this?
This is it's 58.
58.
Yeah.
58 of them things, man. How you feeling? You good?
Man, after 50, I'm feeling good. 58.
You straight?
Yeah. How you feeling, bro?
I'm good. Oh yeah, I think we told them that we went to Orlando last week, didn't we?
I'm pretty sure we mentioned it.
We went to Orlando this past weekend, which was an amazing trip. How'd you feel about it?
Oh yeah, it was much needed. You know, a little getaway.
Definitely. So we left out Friday morning, then we came back Sunday night. Yeah. So it was a nice little trip. Like it didn't feel like it was too quick. Like it felt like the perfect amount of time.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't explain. It was nice to like just get away,
exactly,
be in another city for a minute because we haven't really like traveled too much. I think we said that last week.
Right.
Yeah, since like this summer. And then we got to see like our good friends John and Eric and their family. We haven't seen them for a while because everyone's like, going back to school and
summer's over, interlude.
Right, summer. Yeah, that type beat. And I started like crazy, bro.
I was gonna let it slide.
That's crazy. But no, it was a great trip. Oh yeah, in the vlog.
The vlog,
y'all, the
man.
vlog. So look, let me tell y'all what happened.
Sure, we not vloggers.
No, so like the first part of the vlog, because I mean I was on it like Friday morning, like I was on top of it, like I was out here like Emma Chamberlain, like waking up, like I was gonna set up on a tripod, and, like see, you know how they be rolling out of the bed,
yeah,
like and I was gonna hit one of them joints. Yeah, like we was on top of it in the morning.
Yeah,
I was like showing y'all my packing. You feel what I'm saying? And then like when we got there, it was just a different story. It was just a different story. We did good, like all Friday a little bit, and then Saturday came and we went to the football game, so we were vlogging that, and then it started raining.
That's what it was.
Right, it started raining. After that, it just kind of like it was on and off. I mean, I think we still have enough to put something together. Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
There's content there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And there's still enough few vlogs that we need to put out, so we got y'all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we who do we meet at the airport?
Dang. I want to say Ashton. I know that's not it though.
No.
Dang.
Look up. No, because I remember. Yeah, look it up real quick. I remember. So whenever we were we went from Louisville to Cincinnati because our flight was coming out of Cincinnati, so we had to drive there first in the morning for the flight. So we went there, and we were particularly early. I mean, we were like 2 hours. There 2 hours before the flight, so we had a lot of time to waste, and we hadn't ate all day. So
y'all know where you know what we was on.
Yeah, you know what we was on. So we stopped by like Chick-fil-A. You feel what I'm saying?
Yep.
I grabbed me that number 2 that I always get. Number 2, no pickle, with a cookies and cream shake. You feel what I'm saying? Large fry as well, and it was crazy. So like we're in line, and then I go to the register, and then you can tell the story because it happened to you.
Oh yeah, I forgot. So you know what I'm saying, I was just about to enjoy my Chick-fil-A. I was about to get my order, and then she was like, "You got a podcast?" It was Erin. That was her name.
Shout out Erin.
Yeah.
Shout out Erin, man.
So she was like, "You got a podcast?" I was like, "Word!" I was like, "You see the podcast?" And then we just talked a little bit. She got my order. She got me right with the frosted lemonade. So
for a fact,
shout out Erin.
Then we got a selfie, and then
we got a selfie like in the middle of her working, bro. It's crazy,
which was fire. So shout out Erin. Definitely had to show love, and yeah. So that was dope. Just seeing that again. We always love seeing y'all when we out. And And so, like, if you ever see us, like, definitely, like, say what's up. I remember
say
there was one person, like, I don't know if we were in Atlanta or at Passion, and they were like, yeah, I saw y'all, but I was too nervous. Yo, I promise.
Y'all don't gotta be nervous.
Yes, we don't.
We're the most regular people.
We're not celebrities at all.
We're the most regular people. Like,
no, but that was super dope. I don't think we got to vlog that, so I guess we just had to plug it in the pod.
Yeah. We forgot that. We forgot to.
Anyways, bro, let's get straight into it. You ready?
Let's get it.
Yeah. So this episode, in my feelings, man, So originally what had happened was I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw this video that Ruslan and Tim Ross had posted.
Yeah.
And they were essentially like had just proposed a question and they were giving their answers and going back and forth on that. And in my head, while I'm watching this video, I kind of like answered the question. And then like simultaneously, like as I'm like finishing answering the question, I was like, well, I probably wouldn't say that or feel very comfortable actually expressing how I like truly feel on this issue.
Right.
And especially in that space, like whether that be them or just like Christians in general, I'm like, that's interesting. Like, why do I feel that? Like, why do I feel like with that question in particular, or like just generally with how I feel sometimes, that I can't be completely like transparent in that, particularly with like body of believers. And then as I'm thinking about that, the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that I think sometimes within the church and just the body of Christ at large, we haven't done the best at allowing people to feel, like giving them permission to just feel, and not co-signing reckless behavior or being like emotional or emotion driven, but just allowing them to feel. It's like this may have happened to you if you grew up in the church, particularly, but sometimes, growing up,
talk to me.
It would be like you may express like in a moment how you're feeling about something. So you may be like, yo, like I'm a little anxious right now. I may be I'm a bit worried, or I'm grieving in this moment, and they'll be like, oh, don't claim that. don't speak that over your life. And I'm like, fam, like, I'm not claiming nothing. This is really how I feel.
The reality of it.
Right. This is the reality of like where I'm at and how I'm feeling in this moment. And I think that sentiment can sometimes like just be carried across like the church and the body of believers. Sometimes when you come to Christ, of like, yo, like, maybe is it okay to feel this? Right? Is this right? Like, is this wrong? Right. So sometimes we can just maybe get in a mode or a tendency or a habit, like in our walk with Christ, in particular, like when we have accountability of like maybe suppressing our emotions and just stuffing them and like putting them to the side and not actually like taking them to God and being transparent with it.
Right.
So I think we also have to realize that like emotions are not to be ignored, but just managed well. Yeah. Like as we know that we're made in the image of God, and God himself has emotions, right? Like he weeps, like he gets angered, right? And he grieves, like the Bible talks about, like the Holy Spirit grieves. And so we have to really come to realize that, emotions aren't like inherently evil or completely unnecessary. And like, so emotions aren't the thing that should like always pull us away from God, but actually push us closer to him, like in moments where we're feeling like these intense feelings of like X, Y, and Z. It should be the thing that catalyst that actually push us closer to God.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just having a conversation the other day, and I feel like I say that every EP, but no, I really do. But I think it's just like the topics are always so timely. Like I'm always like talking about it in like some sort of conversation throughout the week. But I was talking to my friend, and they had mentioned how sometimes they feel like when people say stuff or react to you being transparent with them about something you're thinking, they say stuff like, people have it worse, or like, it could be worse. And when they say stuff like that, and you can even start saying it to yourself, and that is a way that you start like suppressing your that's a way that you don't allow yourself to feel, and I get it, because, it's pushing you into a place of gratitude and gratefulness. But I think it's possible to still be grateful, but also help like deal with it. You know what I mean? Not just push your emotions and your feelings to the side like that. And that was funny what you said about how people be like, oh, like don't claim it and stuff like that. That's always been kind of like a pet peeve of mine. I think what it is, or a part of it at least, is I think some believers like allow their faith to detach rationality from life sometimes. And it's because we realize the existence of and have access to the supernatural, and we allow that to take away from the truth that we're also dealing with a natural human experience. You know, I think like both are true at the same time, right? For example, when it comes to situations where like mourning or the mourning the death of like a loved one or something, like I understand that God has a plan. I understand that nothing is void of a reason, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I'm still sad that this person is gone, you know?
Right.
Yeah, like, yeah, I understand the power Jesus walked in and subsequently the power I have, but like that doesn't take away from this flesh right here, this body, these feelings, this tug of war that I'm feeling. And it's weird because it's like because we have the solution, we feel like we're not allowed to wrestle with the problem at all. But it's the problem that leads us to take it to God. It's the emotion, it's the question that allows us to take it to God. It's like we have it backwards, you know? It's like we think, oh, we have the solution, we shouldn't have any issues at all. But it's like, no, we have the issues, we also have the solution. Let's take it to the solution. So I think that's a part of it, a part of where that stems from for sure.
Right. And sometimes it can be the fact that like in a moment you may be fearful or anxious or grieving, frustrated, irritated, whatever. Like those aren't like signs of you being like detached from God or not being like solidified in your faith. And so I think sometimes we don't always think for whatever reason that like the two can coexist. Like, you know, you can be walking by the Spirit, right? And still there may be a moment of like, dang, like I'm heartbroken.
Yeah.
I may be disappointed. I may be sad, right? So that isn't always the issue, but the problem comes in whenever you allow these things to act, like control your life and dictate your every move and or the motives in which like you're walking through life. And so yeah, I think the language just has to change to like, yo, like instead of like, no, like you can't feel that. Yo, that's not allowed. That's wrong. To like, yo, just don't allow this to control you, or rather like manage this well. Yeah. Which is ultimately what we're supposed to do. Anyway, it's just like manage these things well and not allow these emotions to become our God.
Exactly.
Right. To be the deciding factor or the say so in like, okay, this is how I'm going to move. This is how I'm going to live my life, or this is the path I'm going to go down. And then allowing ourselves to feel being transparent and like authentic in these things, but still not allowing them to ultimately take the throne.
That's a good point. Yeah. And something that I heard from Tim Ross on his podcast was he said vulnerability is our strongest weapon. And I thought that was a really good point. And that applies to this conversation as well, because I think what it is when you acknowledge and you actually face that problem, it's causing you to lean on your faith even more. I think we look at it backwards. We look at it like, oh, if I'm acknowledging this feeling and I'm feeling this way, that's saying that I don't have faith, or, you know, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, I can't be dealing with this, right? That's the way we look at it. But in all reality, when you actually bring that thing to God, that is you saying, I feel like he can handle it. I believe that he can handle it. Opposed to vice versa, when I push it away, that's me saying, not directly, but it's me saying I don't think God can handle it. So I think it's the vulnerability and the transparency with that actually pushes us to lean on our faith even more. So I thought vulnerability is our strongest weapon. It's a good point.
I like that, yeah. And another part of this conversation that I didn't even really recognize or was thinking about beforehand, but whenever I was doing like a little studying, it came up, is the fact that we all, whenever like, you know, we're talking about like emotions and managing them well and how that plays into like our relationship with God, like we also have to be very aware of like where our emotions are like rooted in, right? So like I mentioned earlier, like, you know, we are made in the image of God and God has emotions. And so we understand like God gets angry, but he has a righteous anger. Yeah. Which means like this anger that he has is like rooted in like truth. And sometimes like our emotions can be the result of something like which is ultimately false. So like, for example, you can have a moment or be in a situation where like you feel a strong sense of like guilt, like disappointment, or rather like condemnation. Yeah. And that emotion that you're feeling can be the result of a narrative that says, yo, like I've strayed too far from God. Like I'm no longer enough. I'm no longer worthy like of his love and or his grace, and I can no longer actually go before the throne of grace. And right, so like now you're feeling this emotion, like you've ultimately, now you're in a position where like your peace may be taken away. You may be like really just unstable. Like here one day, what one day, there the next, or whatever that looks like. But it's because like what you're feeling is rooted in something that's not true.
That's good.
So always looking at the root is like really, really important. And like even like let's use another example. Like if you got you a little like a little boo thing or somebody you texting, crushing on, whatever
My
it is,
Kiki.
right? You feel what I'm saying? Do you love me? There you go. And so if you texted them or whatever, y'all talking and communicating, right?
Yeah.
And there may be a moment, there may be a day, right? Like you're texting them, y'all going back and forth, right? And you may feel like they may stop answering, right? And so like you can have a moment where you feel like, dang, like they're not interested in me anymore,
right.
or like I'm not a priority in their life, or they don't want to like talk to me. And the whole time they phone just died.
They just needed a charge, bro.
You feel what I'm saying? Like they went to the gym. You feel me? So they was hitting that 30-minute ride back home, and the phone they ain't had the charger. They got caught lacking. You feel me? So like, that's just a small example that we can apply to so many other things of, just like sometimes like these emotions can be like rooted in something that may not always be like complete truth, which can lead to like us, like I said earlier, like just losing our peace or our stability that we need to have. And so the biggest point of all that is just examining where they come from, and like we keep repeating, managing them well and not allowing them to take just complete control.
That's a good point. I remember you had mentioned, I don't remember what EP it was in, but you had said like your pain isn't right or wrong, it's real. And I think that also applies to like your feelings and your emotions with this conversation. Like it's not right or wrong, it's real, and you're feeling that. So it's like maybe it's like the feeling is real, but maybe the place it stems from necessarily that isn't the same case, And I think with that, the next step with dealing with that is asking yourself what you're doing with the emotions and the feelings, right? After examining the root, like you said, after realizing where it's coming from, the next step is like, okay, I'm feeling the emotion now. Where am I taking it? How am I moving on it? How am I acting on it? So then that just comes down to like how you're expressing it. Like you talked about how we're made in the image of God and how he has emotions himself, but you don't see him, acting, crazy once he's feeling, this anger or this frustration, right? Because you said he's looking at it through a lens of like righteousness and truth. And I think we need to be doing the same thing. It's not about the emotion. It's about how we're reacting to it. And I think with that, there's several different ways that we can express our emotions after we're feeling them. And one of the ways is through our gifts. Whether you are, you make music or you do some type of art, whether dancing, cinematics, like drawing itself, like whatever the case may be, I think through all of these things, our gifts can be an outlet or a way that we can express these feelings. And I think something that the church did at one point, which I think we've moved more out of these days, but it sort of like suppressed these outlets of expression. And it was like, okay, if you have these gifts, it's like you can only use them in this way, and in these four walls in this specific way. And it wasn't really allowing people to have these healthy outlets to express their emotions and their feelings. So I think that is something that we have to be watchful of and watch for, is like when you're feeling that emotion, it's about what you're doing with it, how you're expressing it, where you're going to for that outlet. And obviously the main thing is like take it to God in prayer. But I think he was gracious enough to give us these gifts as well that we can also express these feelings and these emotions through. So yeah, it's just, I think it's about the expression and how you're doing it.
For a fact, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. You consider you emotional? Would you consider yourself emotional?
I mean, I guess.
What do you mean?
I mean, nah, not necessarily.
Why?
I'm more of the type of person that will suppress my emotions, to be real. I'm the type of person that doesn't like to deal with them or confront them, so I kind of just say, oh, it is what it is, and shrug my shoulders. Like earlier when I was talking about how sometimes you'll say it could be worse. Like people do that and suppress their emotion. I'm that person. I do that. So maybe I'm an emotional person. I just don't like dealing with them.
Like it could be worse. It could be worse. Like you just think of your problems of something that's very like minuscule in comparison to everything. And it's just
I brush them off. Yeah,
I got you. No, yeah, I think it's just interesting because I think when, I don't know, in the culture and society, I think even the term or ideal of emotional is kind of skewed a bit. I think that emotional is just being emotion driven.
Right.
Like your life and all your actions are dictated based upon how you feel. Right. Not on truth, not on, what may be like rational. It's like everything you do is just like, it's emotion driven. Like it has the driver's seat of your life. Right. Yeah. So I don't think it's like necessarily positive or like the way anyone should live. But I think we sometimes will throw the term emotional on someone who just simply like is in tune with their emotions and expresses that. Right. So it's like, someone that may cry like pretty often may be deemed as emotional, but the reality is they may just be very like in tune with their emotions, and they just may express that through like the avenue of like tears or whatever. But it may not. That doesn't necessarily mean that like they're being driven by them.
That makes sense,
right? And so, yeah. And then I think it's a thing of with let's being emotional. Like we, I don't know why I'm thinking about that song by Drake, "Emotionalist." Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like it's not necessarily demonized, but it's not as like promoted. It's not as like, especially like with men particularly, but even like just generally, like when it comes to like what's a parallel to this? Adjacent. Like being vulnerable and putting yourself out there, it's like a no. It's like these social rules and social cues that we just don't do, like trying to protect ourselves, and also like being very like you said earlier, vulnerable, real, transparent, and authentic with like our emotions and where we're at is just like typically like a sign of weakness.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And not anything that is like deemed very like worthy or like admirable or like a pat on the back. Like dang, bro. Like I like the fact that you're real with like how you feel and where you at. You know what I mean? It's not anything that's like very highlighted. So it's like the opposite of it, of like being very much like heartless. Yeah. Cold-hearted.
It definitely is a trend. Like I see that.
To myself. You know what I mean? And like, you know what I mean? My emotions, like, what are those? You feel me? Like that tough guy, which is just happens across the board.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I didn't think about it like that. And I think that even goes into this next point I wanted to make. I think what it is we definitely see this trend of like this, like you got to be heartless type of thing. And I think what it is when you don't feel for yourself, you can't really feel for others, or you're less open to do that. So it's like when I'm in a place where I'm like, okay, I don't even want to be in touch with my emotions, like that sort of, I lose a lot of empathy for other people subsequently because of that. And that becomes a huge issue with this conversation, because like when you're not in tune with your own feelings and your emotions, then you don't care about anyone else's. And that's how you see different situations. Like I think even sometimes the presentation of the gospel can be very like rigid sometimes, because people don't have a lot of empathy because they're not allowing themselves to feel for themselves. So
they can't relate to what someone else has gone through.
Yeah, and it keeps you from like trying to put yourself in other people's shoes. And does that make sense? Like when you don't feel for yourself, you can't feel for other people. So you become a lot more heartless with stuff like that. And so I think that's a huge issue, and why this conversation is important, because we have to be in touch with our own feelings so that we can like give that out to other people and be more empathetic,
Yeah, and also just like connect with others. And that's something I was going to mention, but I didn't even know how it would play into this, so I'm glad you brought it up. But that was my issue like the first 6 months of the year, is the fact that I just, like I'm an empath. So like, when others cry, I cry. When they're joyful, I'm joyful, right? Like I am like very much an individual who likes to put myself in like the shoes of other people, right? Like when I see a video of like someone like crying, I can't help but feel like that same type of like agony or whatever their emotion they're feeling in that moment, right? And so for a while, it was like I wanted to just turn it off. You feel me? Like it was, I felt like it almost became like too exhausting or too much and too time consuming. And all of that was just a lot. And I didn't want to like take that on anymore. Right. And so like I just like, when I hear somebody's story about what they may be going through or something that may have happened to them, I was very like stern of like, well, you should have done this better. Like always pointing it back to them. Yeah. And not like actually trying to like analyze and like break down or just being pathetic to like, oh, like this may have been what caused this or whatever. Yeah. And what had happened is like I started losing touch with like people.
Yeah.
I couldn't connect with people anymore. Like not necessarily completely, but I saw it like gradually happening of like, yo, like, you know, the way in which like I evangelize or even care for other people or my heart to intercede for others on their behalf, it wasn't there anymore. Right? Like, you know, we don't have a savior that's not, we say this all the time, that's not touched with like the infirmities of his people.
Yeah.
He had to feel it so he could like understand us.
Yeah.
Right? That's a part of like him coming down, humbling himself into flesh and crucifying himself on the cross. He experienced every human emotion. Like he experienced every emotion one could feel.
Right.
Right? Which then gives him access to also understand what we may be going through in the moment. And so like whenever you cut that off, you also like cut off those like connecting points or like common grounds.
Yeah.
I like to say. When trying to speak and like just even conversate with other people. So that's another thing about it too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But how you got anything else for the people? What you got to leave them with?
I'd probably just say, I'd probably just say like you're allowed to feel. Just reiterating everything we said. Like you're allowed to feel, and this is important to understand because once you start allowing yourself to feel, you'll stop. Dang. Once you start allowing yourself to feel, you'll also start allowing others to feel around you, right? And you won't start making people feel like outcasts for their emotions or whatever the case may be. And you'll find this like newfound like empathy for others. So I think it's very important. Like allow yourself to feel. It's about what you do with it.
For a fact.
So yeah.
And then just like cement it all. We've had so many conversations about different things, but like, you know, submitting the plan, the desire, right? The relationship, the future, whatever, but you know, also the emotions, right?
Yeah.
Submitting that like to him, rooting those in truth and just being very vigilant of like making sure they're not like taking the throne. But also being comfortable of like being transparent with like, yo, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And not feeling like you have to hide it away or like, you know, feel as if this is a sign of like weakness or being a second class or a second class citizen of the kingdom of God or second class Christian.
Right.
Right. And just being real with it. So yeah, that's it.
That's it, man.
But y'all know what it is. Stay you.
Stay real.
And stay humble. We'll catch y'all next week. Much love.